Right. So I just got back from what might have been the weirdest job interview ever. As you can see, I'm wearing a nice shirt, and I was actually not there for an hour on a Zoom call. I was in Los Angeles for about 3 days. Okay, so they were doing an offsite, and they invited me to come, and I ended up getting hired at least temporarily. This is a startup, so things change really fast. Um, but I'm in this video. I'm just going to talk about how I actually got a, at least temporary position at this company. I could easily make it, permanent, um, and hopefully I can give you some advice on how you can also get a job. I'm going to talk about the first thing that I learned on the way to the Airbnb from the airport, and that's from a couple of my coworkers who said that the way they actually, hang on, the way they actually got the job is they didn't just apply to the job on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever it was. They actually sent a cold email to the company in order to get noticed. Like in the current day and age, it's so easy to apply for jobs. I mean, you can use AI to generate the resume, the cover letter. There's all this stuff that can be done extremely quickly, and so job applications are just not that valuable, right? The real value is shown when you actually reach out and make it clear that you're excited about this company and that you actually want to work for them. That kind of de-risks yourself in the eyes of the employer and makes it easier for them to want to talk to you. So that's one thing. I'll talk about that in a second. But um, actually, here, I'll talk about that right now. So there were a few key values they talked about while they were there because they were working out their kind of core values. This is a pretty small startup. It's around 10 people right now. And their first value is having a high bias to action. I forget exactly what they said, but basically it's have a high bias towards taking action. And this is the most important thing in a startup. That's why it was the first value on their list, because in order to actually kind of make progress, you have to do things. They said that the if you have a bunch of decisions you can make, the best thing you can do is make the best decision. The second best thing you can do is make any decision. And the worst thing you can do is make no decision. And that's absolutely true. You should always just do something. Just think about it. The bare minimum, basically, take action and learn from that, because that's the only way you move forward in life. And that's how startups work. They take action, they build things, and then they break it down if it doesn't work, and they keep going. Okay, so that's what life is ultimately about, and not just startups. So the same thing applies to those guys who emailed the company. That's demonstrating a high bias for action, and that kind of shows that they're actually able to fit in at a startup, or in fact any company. You have to have a high bias to action because everything is constantly changing, and you have to be able to build and adapt to the marketplace. So a high bias for action, if you take away anything from this video, that is the number one thing. Just be always doing things, be building projects. That's how I got in touch with this founder anyways. He found me because I make YouTube videos and I post in forums and discords, and I talk about the projects I'm building, and that's where he found me. And I was already doing stuff, so it de-risks me in the eyes of him and makes me seem like I actually have a high bias towards action, which I do. And by the way, I want to add something on that. I used to not have a high bias towards action. I used to procrastinate like a motherfucker. I used to be lazy, and I might have to make a video in the future because I haven't thought about how I change that. But just know it is possible to change, okay? If you feel like you're lazy, it's absolutely possible to become an absolute killer. The last thing, so I said it's kind of a temporary position. They called me their secret weapon, okay? Because I think they like me. I'm extremely attractive. I'm funny. I'm also super humble, and they said I'm the secret weapon, which basically is the nice way, at least in my view, of saying that they don't know what to do with me. And I had a nice chat with the founder about what I should do for them, and yeah, he was basically saying like, I don't know, dude, we're gonna have to figure it out. So this is a good thing, but also a bad thing. Firstly, it's bad because I need to actually provide value in order to show that I can stay at the company. So if the stuff I'm doing doesn't really work, then obviously it's not going to make sense to keep paying me. It's a startup. They have limited money. They have limited time. They have to make it work. So that's kind of the same with any job, is like if you get hired, you have to actually show that you're valuable. You don't just get tenure instantly. I mean, no one does. We've seen that very recently. Um, but this is actually a good thing because what it shows is that, at least in their minds, I have skills and aptitudes that they don't have, or at least they don't want to have to like think about. And so that makes me more valuable than someone um, who doesn't have like kind of different experiences. You know what I mean? So I used to do a lot of marketing. I used to, or I have like technical skills in addition to marketing and having like a a mind that thinks about marketing and customer acquisition. And this is a skill set that is extremely valuable in a startup, or at least kind of a way of thinking that's valuable in a startup. And so if you can cultivate this mindset within yourself, you're going to increase your chances of actually being valuable, because every company, like they need people who think about distribution and UX and the product and how things and how everything works together, from the first message that gets sent or the first ad that gets shown to a potential customer to the third year that they're working with that business. How does that process look, and is it coherent, and does it lead to the highest, the lowest CAC and the highest LTV, which is the two numbers that actually make a business good, okay? And so, to summarize, I would say two things. Firstly, have a high bias to action. And the second thing is that means the high bias to action means you should be doing projects, you should be learning things, you should be thinking about stuff that doesn't even apply to your profession, because it's going to apply eventually. You'll find a position, or you'll find someone who needs a lot of help, and you'll be able to fit into the role, or create a role for yourself. A lot of kind of startup founders and people that I've listened to, on podcasts, they say that their best jobs weren't jobs that they just applied to and that they filled a role. It's actually jobs where they said, "Hey, you need help with this thing. Let me come in and help you," and they created their own position. Okay, that's the best position you can be in as an employee, and especially working at a startup, because obviously a startup has much higher upside, and I also think it's way more fun than working at fucking Google or some shit like that. Okay, um, yeah. Hopefully this video was helpful, and I don't have a call to action. Just subscribe or something like that.